John here, and today we're going to talk about another film here, and this is for Shawn Little. He wanted me to talk about and review Back to the Future, 1985 classic. And, this is a film that I do have the trilogy in my collection, and I didn't go back and rewatch because for me, this is a film, along with the other two, that I've seen these films so many times. For a while there, some years ago, when I first bought the first trilogy pack that they put out, and I got that for Christmas one year, and I would watch these movies over and over again. So it's one of these movies, especially the first one, that it's always fresh in my mind. And no matter what I'm doing, no matter what I'm thinking about, no matter what I'm working on, or where I'm at, or if I'm thinking about a certain movie or thinking about what videos to make, and like Back to the Future, when I think about the first movie, you can automatically quote it, you can automatically think of certain scenes. Why don't you make like a tree and leave, and the characters and so much more. So I don't know what kind of review this is going to be, because who hasn't seen this movie? Who hasn't seen Back to the Future? And I was thinking about it beforehand, before I hit record here. Is this one of my favorite movies? Because again, for a while there, I was obsessed with this trilogy. When I had that original trilogy pack. I would watch these movies over and over again. And I would say the first one, could be one of my favorite movies. There's many more films now that I would put above Back to the Future. But if I had like maybe, let's say a top 100 or a top 150 or 200, Back to the Future could be in there somewhere. Again, there's other movies that I love more, because since then I have discovered more. But, Back to the Future is a great movie. And it's just one of those movies that, I can, if you know the movie well, and you've seen it so many times, you can, right then and there, you can throw out, certain quotes and certain moments, and that for me, it kind of defines a favorite. When you have a favorite movie, you can give out certain scenes, you can give out certain quotes, you can talk about these characters and all that stuff. So that's kind of why, like, I almost wanted to go back and rewatch. But I know the movie well enough to, talk about it here. And again, thank you to Shawn Little for the request. But the plot here, so, it's set in the 80s, and Marty McFly, played by Michael J. Fox, which is funny because I just reviewed Atlantis: The Lost Empire, so we got another Michael J. Fox film here. And in this movie, he's sent back in time to 1955 via a time machine, a DeLorean, and when he goes back in time, he meets his parents, and he kind of disrupts their romance, or getting together, so to speak. And his mother, has a crush on Marty McFly, or Calvin Klein, if you want to say that. The mother becomes attracted to Marty, and Marty has to repair the damage, like repair the history, by rekindling his parents' romance and get back to the year of 1985 with the help of Doc Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd. And that's the plot here to the film. But the film is directed by Robert Zemeckis here. Great director. Just a year prior, directing Romance in the Stone, he would go on to direct Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He directed Contact, Castaway, and even that same year, What Lies Beneath. I like that movie. He's a great director, and I don't know what happened, because he directed that Pinocchio movie that live action Pinocchio that everybody took a crap on. So I don't know what happened to Robert Zemeckis. But, for the most part, at least back in the day, he was a great director. Done some great work. The cast here, Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly, does a great job. We all have heard about and know about the Eric Stoltz, was almost Marty McFly. And, they shot some footage, which I've seen before. But the right call was made, to have Michael J. Fox as that character. The way he acts, the personality of Marty McFly, the look of the character, he's wearing a life preserver. And, even in the opening of the film, when he goes into the house of Doc Brown and he's turning up the amp and it blows up, and, again, a lot of great scenes, and the character's iconic. Christopher Lloyd as the character of Doc Brown, which, funny enough, there's this list out there, and I have to find it again, but it was like a short list of actors that were considered for Doc Brown, and I swear, like, Jeff Goldblum's name was up there. Who else? Like James Woods, a lot of crazy names. But if you could find it out there, there's this whole list of like names that were considered for this character. But for me, Christopher Lloyd knocked it out of the park. Such a memorable character. And really, the two characters here of Marty McFly and Doc Brown have such a wonderful chemistry that almost 40 years later, we still talk about these characters. We still talk about this movie, but these characters have such a wonderful rapport. It's a classic. Characters. I mean, it's just, again, their rapport, their banter is, wonderful, and it spawned, two other movies, and it's just a, connection that people today still talk about. For a film that is almost 40 years old, we still talk about these characters of Marty McFly and Doc Brown. Leah Thompson as Lorraine Baines, I think a year later she did Howard the Duck, which I don't mind that movie. I can watch it as like, I usually don't say guilty pleasure, but I can see that as like a guilty pleasure. But, Leah Thompson's good here. Crispin Glover as George McFly. Crispin Glover's a great actor. Although there's some tension that I've kind of read about before between, Crispin Glover and Bob Gale, when it comes to Back to the Future. I'm not all too familiar with the story, but I know there's a reason why, Crispin Glover doesn't really show up at these conventions or, has anything to do with Back to the Future whenever they, talk about it in panels and stuff like that. You don't see Crispin Glover, something to do with his character and, not coming back for part 2. Again, you can read about that. I would do a terrible job at trying to, describe that here, but, Crispin Glover, he is a pivotal, if I can say the word right, a pivotal part in this movie. Tom Wilson as the character of Biff, another memorable character. He's the bully. From the moment we see him, he's a bully in the, present where, he's talking down to George McFly, and then we see him in the past where, even back in the 50s, he's still a bully, and, Tom Wilson, does a great job. Claudia Wells as Jennifer, which they would recast in the sequels. They would get Elizabeth Shue, but I thought Claudia Wells did a good job here. Markham McClure as the character of Dave, who is the brother of Marty McFly. Billy Zane, who is part of the group with Biff. that he's in the film here, and the character of Strickland, played by, I forgot his name, James. I know he's still around. That guy is still around. You're a slacker. And Huey Lewis has a bit part in the movie, has like a cameo, which is cool. I'm afraid he's just too darn loud. Everybody remembers that scene. But again, it's a really good cast here. Memorable characters. It's a very memorable cast here. Also, too, the score by Alan Silvestri, it's iconic. Dun 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 dun. See, I'm terrible, but everybody knows the score. The idea and the premise of time travel and using a DeLorean to go back in time. I mean, and it's such a cool car. They don't make them anymore, but I think maybe there's like a special factory where you can get them custom made. But there is the look of the DeLorean is so cool, and going back in time to the 50s, the aesthetic of the 50s I thought was really well done, and they really captured that era. And Marty trying to convince the doc back in the 50s, when he meets the doc, hey, I'm from the future, I came here in a time machine that you invented. And see, I'm already like spitting out quotes here, but meeting George McFly, his father, where George McFly is a bit of a nerd, and meeting his mother, and his mother has a crush on him, which is weird, but it's all fun. You have Biff in the movie. He's a bully in high school, and he picks on George McFly, and now Marty McFly has to deal with Biff, and he's trying to connect his parents, and Biff is in the way, and also Marty's trying to get back to the future, and he takes the time machine to Doc, and the Doc is trying to repair it, and he's learning about the flux capacitor, which I didn't even mention before. But the flux capacitor, and then you get towards the end of the movie where you have the Enchantment Under the Sea, where Marty is on stage playing Johnny B. Good and Earth Angel, and again, there's so many things about this movie that people still remember. People still remember all these scenes, all these characters. And it's a timeless movie. I mean, it's one of these movies that will never die. And, I read somewhere that Robert Zemeckis signed this thing or some kind of like contract to where this movie, as long as he's still alive, this movie will never be remade. And I pray to God that they never do it. Because, unfortunately, we have seen many, remakes fall on their face and just complete fail. And I pray to God that never happens. But this is a film that, even after we die, it's going to be still talked about and will live on for many more years to come. And to me, that's the definition of timeless. This is a film that is timeless. And again, like I said, I don't know what kind of review, this is going to turn out to be, or, if I'm doing a good job or not, because it's a film that many people have seen. And if you haven't seen, what are you waiting on? Because, you have great characters, memorable characters. And I didn't even talk about the soundtrack. A lot of great songs, The Power of Love. I gotta get back in time. I mean, the score by Alan Silvestri. Memorable characters, I already mentioned that, but, the rapport between these characters and the personalities here, and everybody was right for the part, from Michael J. Fox to Leah Thompson to Christopher Lloyd, who's this very eccentric character. And the character of George McFly, played by Crispin Glover. The character of Biff. Everybody played their parts well. And, it's a film, like I said, it's almost 40 years old, and we still talk about this movie to this day. I am sure it's in the IMDb top 250. And, like I said, it's a film that is going to, even after we're gone and vapor, this is a film that's going to, live on forever. Unless for some dumb reason they find it problematic and they try to cancel it, which I doubt. But Back to the Future is an all-time classic. And out of 5 stars, I'm going to give Back to the Future 5 out of 5 stars. But thank you for watching, and have a good day.